welcome back to Midnight Brew and Mysteries. This is episode 9, The Mystery of Orbs, Dust, Light, or Spirits Watching. Welcome back to Midnight Brew and Mysteries. Thank you so much for tuning back in and joining me today. And today's podcast, we're going to be exploring the strange, the unexplained, and the things that lurk just beyond the edge of reality. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the most controversial subjects in paranormal investigation: tiny glowing spheres, floating lights, mysterious balls of energy that appear in photographs and videos when no one remembers seeing them with their own eyes. Some call them dust, others call them spirits, but what if the truth lies somewhere in between? Grab your favorite drink, turn down the lights, and join me as we explore the chilling mystery of orbs. So hello everyone and welcome back to the podcast today. I'm so glad that you're here. So as I said, today we are exploring orbs, and orbs are something I have been pretty much seeing in my photos pretty much all of my life. From back when we used to use the little one-time disposable cameras to even now with our advanced sophisticated smartphones, I've always been someone who has seen orbs in my pictures. Is it a sign of spirits in my presence, or is it just simply dust particles? I wanted to create an episode all about orbs because I just feel like they are fascinating. Sometimes orbs are so unexplained. They'll be in your photo or video even, and someone else will notice it and say, "Oh, did you notice this orb in your photo?" And you totally have no idea. It's, something you never noticed even there before, and it's definitely not something that you saw in reality when you were actually taking that photo or video. So I've always thought orbs were just kind of fascinating and maybe a possible gateway into the spirit world. And I do want to share with you guys one of my experiences with orbs. Well, I have a couple experiences with orbs, but I could only for some reason find one of the pictures that I had recently taken not too long ago, probably earlier this year, that had an orb in it. And I'll go ahead and share that with you guys. And I actually went ahead and sent it to myself as well so that I can kind of look back at it. But this is basically just a picture of the front of my house. And I was just photographing because we had just recently put in those little lights by the front entryway, the little sidewalk lights. And I wanted to take a nice picture and kind of see what they look like in the evening time. And I happened to notice after taking the photo that there was not only a green orb, but a green heart-shaped orb in one of those pictures, which I thought was really interesting. But it always seems to me as if I'm always seeing green orbs, green or yellow orbs. I think I've seen maybe a blue orb one time or so, but I haven't seen a whole lot, mostly just green or yellow, which is just really interesting. I don't know if that really means anything, but that's just what I've really been seeing. And I have 2 photos to share with you guys, and it's just 2 different photos, and they both have the green orb. And as you can see, the orb did move position. In one of the photos, the orb is actually like on the front porch area, and in the other one, it's kind of more down in the grass. And what's really interesting about that is that every time I've seen the orbs, at least here in our new house, the orbs have always kind of moved in the photos. Even though I'm not moving, the orbs will actually move. And it was so crazy. I actually have another photo that I wasn't able to find. I kept looking through all of my photos. I just couldn't seem to find it. But there was another one where I was standing on my front porch and I was taking a picture, I think of the moon maybe. And it was like, kind of evening time. It wasn't like pitch black yet, but it was starting to get dark. And I saw an orb as I was taking the photo. I saw it in the viewfinder on my phone, or on the screen. And I saw it and it was kind of out at the end of the street. And it slowly maneuvered its way, kind of zigzagging almost, all the way up to the front porch where I was. And I literally watched it happen on the picture on my screen. So I thought that was really weird. I know orbs are said to be like, reflections of light particles and dust particles, but a dust particle that moved towards me, that's really interesting. Anyway, we are going to be exploring more about orbs today, kind of talking more about what orbs actually are, what the different colors of orbs mean. And yeah, I just shared with you guys one of my photos that I do have that I was able to find where I was able to see an orb in it. And there was actually another time when I had taken a photo of the cemetery as I was walking. One time it was like late evening, not like nighttime just yet, but it's starting to get dark out. And I took a picture of like kind of the street and the sunset and everything. And I did see an orb in the shot, and it was kind of like sort of in that area where the cemetery is. So I always kind of thought that was a little bit interesting. I wish I could find that photo. I need to see if I can go back and try to find it, but that was the only one I was able to find this time. So let's go ahead and dive into the first part of this podcast, where I'm going to be sharing with you guys what exactly are orbs. If you've ever taken a photo in a dark room, an old cemetery, or even inside your own home, you may have noticed something unusual: a glowing circle, a translucent sphere, a floating ball of light that wasn't there when the picture was taken. These anomalies are commonly referred to as orbs. In paranormal circles, orbs are often believed to be manifestations of spiritual energy. Some investigators claim they represent ghosts, angels, spirit guides, or even the energy left behind by a deceased loved one. Others argue they're nothing more than dust particles reflecting a camera flash. So who's right? The answer is more complicated than you think. So a lot of people do say that the orb technically appears because of a camera flash, but believe it or not, I've actually taken a lot of photos that didn't include a flash, and I still got an orb in my photo. So the scientific explanation behind orbs. Let's begin with what science says. According to photography experts, most orb photographs can be explained by something called backscatter. Backscatter occurs when a camera flash illuminates tiny particles floating close to the lens. These particles may include dust, pollen, rain droplets, snow, insects, and pet dander. Because the particles are extremely close to the camera lens, they become out of focus and appear as large glowing circles. This is especially common with digital cameras and smartphones. In fact, many photographers can intentionally recreate orb photographs by taking pictures in dusty environments using a flash. From a scientific perspective, the vast majority of orb photos can be explained this way. And honestly, many paranormal investigators agree. Even some of the most experienced ghost hunters will immediately dismiss an orb if it appears to behave exactly like dust or moisture. But then there are the cases that don't fit so neatly into that explanation. Which also brings me to share that I did tell you guys back, even when I used to use disposable cameras, I did used to get orbs in my photos. And I wish I could find some. I would have to literally go back through all of my old photos that were printed out. But yeah, it definitely doesn't just kind of explain that, well, just using digital cameras and smartphones creates orbs, because I've actually gotten orbs in my photos even back when I used to use disposable cameras. When orbs become difficult to explain, this is where things start to get interesting. Paranormal investigators point to a small percentage of orb cases that display unusual characteristics. For example, some appear to move against the wind. Others change direction abruptly, as in the ones that I saw out in my front yard that moved from the street to the front porch. Some seem to respond to questions during investigations. That's interesting. And a few have even been captured appearing to emerge from walls, floors, or objects. There are reports of orbs being witnessed with the naked eye before appearing on camera, and witnesses often describe them as glowing balls of light ranging from the size of a golf ball to the size of a basketball. In some cases, people claim the orb seemed aware of their presence, watching, observing, and following. And that's where the scientific explanations begin to struggle. And I totally agree with that. Whenever I have seen the orbs, especially here in my front yard, it always seems as if they come closer to me. So I see them, but they always seem to kind of move and maneuver a little bit closer to me. So I feel like if it was truly just a dust particle, it definitely wouldn't be doing that. It would just be remaining in one spot, especially when I take the photo. Historical accounts of spirit lights. The idea of mysterious lights isn't new. Long before cameras existed, cultures around the world reported seeing strange floating lights. In folklore, they often had different names: ghost lights, spirit lights, lantern lights, and will-o-wisps. These glowing apparitions were said to appear in graveyards, forests, battlefields, and lonely roads. Some legends warn travelers not to follow them, and others believe they were souls trapped between worlds. What's fascinating is that these stories existed centuries before photography could create orb-like images. Could modern orb photographs simply be capturing a phenomenon that people have witnessed through history? Or are our cameras creating patterns that our minds interpret as supernatural? That's really interesting because the fact that people were able to see glowing balls of light floating even before they were able to take photographs of them proves that it's not just dust particles. This section explores a little bit more about what different orb colors mean, and I thought this was really interesting to put in here because I really kind of wanted to understand more about what different colors of orbs actually meant in your photos or videos. One of the most debated aspects of orb sightings is the color. Many paranormal researchers believe the color of an orb may reveal something about the energy it represents. So let's explore some of the most commonly reported colors. White orbs. White is the most commonly reported color. Many investigators associate white orbs with spiritual protection, peaceful spirits, and loved ones visiting from beyond. They're often considered positive and non-threatening. Blue orbs are frequently linked to calm energy, spiritual guidance, and angelic presence. Witnesses often report feeling comforted when blue orbs appear. And I have actually seen blue orbs in my photos before. I don't really remember feeling comforted by them, but I do remember whenever I went back to look at them and I read that they were, a calm energy, an angel, a spiritual presence for guidance. It made me feel a lot better about my photo and I felt pretty calm about that. Green orbs are commonly associated with healing, growth, and nature energy. Some believe green orbs appear in locations where emotional or physical healing is taking place. So as I share with you guys, a lot of the orbs that I see in my photos are green, and I have to say, I do feel like this is accurate. I do feel like my house is definitely kind of a location for me that's very emotional and definitely a lot of kind of mental healing going on. This is finally like my safe space, my peaceful place. After so many years of just living in different locations, living in different apartments, living in different places, and moving and just feeling a total feeling of unsettlement. I finally feel settled in my home, and I feel like this is my safe space and where I can be creative and kind of nurture myself. And so I do feel like, because I do see that, I think it's definitely a nature energy for me. It's kind of like, I don't know, maybe the world's way of like wrapping me up in a hug and being like, this is your place. Be safe here. Yellow or gold orbs. This is probably my second most commonly seen color of orb, and gold orbs are often said to be highly spiritual. They symbolize wisdom, divine protection, and higher consciousness. Some paranormal investigators view these as benevolent entities. Purple orbs, I haven't seen hardly any purple orbs in my photos. Purple is often connected to psychic abilities, spiritual awakening, and intuition. People involved in meditation or spiritual practices sometimes report seeing purple lights during profound experiences. Red orbs, never seen a red orb, and I hope I never do, because red orbs are unsettling territory. And some researchers associate red orbs with strong emotions, anger, and conflict. Not every red orb is considered negative, but many investigators approach them cautiously. So be careful if you get red orbs in your photos. And black orbs, the most disturbing report is a black or shadow-like orb. Unlike glowing spheres, these appear as dark masses that absorb light. Some paranormal researchers believe they represent negative energy. Others argue they are simply shadows or camera artifacts. But either way, reports involving black orbs often accompany feelings of dread, anxiety, or fear. So don't want to see any kind of black orbs in my personal photos. I hope I never do. So, famous paranormal orb encounters. Over the years, investigators have reported orb activity in some of the world's most allegedly haunted locations. Former hospitals, old prisons, abandoned asylums, historic battlefields, and visitors frequently capture photographs showing strange lights hovering in hallways, peering through windows, or floating near locations where tragic events occurred. Skeptics remain unconvinced. Believers see them as evidence that consciousness may survive death, and the debate continues. Could spirits manipulate light? One paranormal theory suggests that spirits may not appear as full apparitions because it requires too much energy. Instead, they manifest as small concentrations of energy, essentially a glowing ball of light. Some researchers speculate that if spirits exist, appearing as an orb may be one of the easiest ways for them to interact with our world. It's a fascinating theory. But so far, there is no scientific evidence proving that spirits can manipulate light in this way. The idea remains firmly in the realm of paranormal speculation. So I did want to share with you guys a real life orb encounter. In the early 2000s, a woman named Monica reportedly captured unusual footage inside her home using a security camera. The footage appeared to show a glowing white orb moving through different rooms of the house. According to her account, the light remained in the home for weeks and seemed to react when family members spoke to it. Monica later revealed that a man named Eddie had died in the house not long before the activity began. She claimed that when family members called out Eddie's name, the orb would sometimes move or change direction. The footage eventually attracted the attention of paranormal investigators and television personality Yvette Fielding, who suggested it could potentially be an early manifestation of a spirit, though no definitive explanation was ever reached. Of course, skeptics argued that unusual lighting conditions, dust particles, insects, or camera artifacts can easily create strange effects on security cameras. And that's what makes stories like this so fascinating. No one can prove that it was a ghost, but no one has definitive proof exactly that it wasn't either. Imagine waking up every morning and finding that same glowing sphere drifting through your house, watching, waiting, and appearing in one room one night and another room the next. Eventually, you might begin to ask the same question that paranormal investigators have been asking for decades. What if something is actually there? Wow, how interesting. So this lady basically was seeing this white glowing ball of light on her security camera footage floating around through her house, going into different rooms and changing rooms. And apparently when they would speak to the glowing ball of light, it would actually react to their voices. So that's kind of even more proof that it is definitely not just a particle of light, but a spirit. And I feel like that is so true, that maybe it is a lot of work for a spirit to fully show itself to us. So the best way that they're able to do it is to basically appear as a little ball of light, little tiny ball of light. That obviously must not take a whole lot of energy, and it's just so much easier so that they don't have to show their whole selves to us. So I'm assuming that if a ghost or a spirit, actually you are able to see the entire being, they must have a lot of energy to be able to do that, because I imagine that it would take quite a lot to be able to show your whole being to someone. So that's just really kind of interesting. It's a very interesting story, because the fact that she was seeing the same ball every single day and night. So that just kind of leads me to kind of ask you guys, how many of you have had orbs in your photos? And how many of you have actually even paid attention to if you do have orbs in your photos? I feel like when we are taking photos, we should be observant and actually notice, are we seeing things in our photo, and what color is it? And maybe, look up the color of your orb and see if it represents something to you. And then that way you're able to kind of associate, am I having a calm feeling when I was in this location or when this thing happened? And I think sometimes that's a just good, like, little entryway into the spirit world. We're able to actually kind of see and notice if they are there, and maybe even feel a connection with them. Especially if you're someone that's maybe lost a loved one recently, or you're maybe wanting to kind of get in touch more with someone that maybe has passed on, or a family member or friend that you no longer are able to see in real life. Maybe you're able to see them in their spirit form. So I think that's kind of interesting, and I feel like people should definitely pay more attention to their photos. I know I always do. I actually was doing a video one time. I was doing my makeup and I was doing a video, and a friend of mine on YouTube actually happened to notice that I had a little glowing orb ball kind of flying around me in my video. I didn't even know it was there until I literally went back and watched it, and I noticed it, and it was kind of like, I think, a blue greenish color. And she said, oh my gosh, there's this orb in your video. And I went back and looked at it, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I missed that. I mean, I edited the video, I posted the video, and the fact that I didn't even notice that there was an orb floating around in it. I think that's kind of what spirituality really is kind of being in tuned to the little things and being able to notice those little things. Feeling whether you feel a certain feeling when you're someplace. Do you get chills? Do you get goosebumps? Do you get this bad feeling, or do you get a good feeling? Or are you able to see orbs or something else that is out of the ordinary? I think that's a really good way to kind of be able to tune in your spirituality and see if you notice things. And sometimes that can be a comforting feeling. And also sometimes it might not be, but if it isn't a good thing, wouldn't you at least want to know ahead of time? I would. What are orbs? Are they dust? Are they moisture? Are they camera reflections? Or evidence that something unseen is moving among us? The scientific explanation accounts for many orb photographs, possibly most of them. Yet there remain stories and experiences that continue to challenge easy explanation, and perhaps one day science will fully explain every orb ever captured. Or perhaps we'll discover that some mysteries refuse to stay buried. The next time you're scrolling through old photos and notice a strange glowing sphere floating behind you, take a look. Because sometimes the most unsettling question isn't what you're seeing, it's whether something was looking back at you. Have you ever captured an orb in a photo or video? Do you think they're dust, camera artifacts, or something paranormal? Share your stories below in the comments, and they may be featured in a future episode, which, by the way, I am going to be doing in my next season, a listener stories episode. So I will be collecting stories. Feel free to share any orb related stories in or comments in this video podcast, and I will be sharing them in upcoming videos. So if you don't want me to share it, make sure you put a disclaimer not to share it, because I'm going to be sharing a lot of comments and stories on an episode next season, which also leads me to, this is episode 9, and episode 10 of my podcast is going to be the last episode for season 1. Doesn't mean the podcast is stopping. I'm just going to take a 2-week break, and then I'm going to collect some fresh ideas and new things for season 2. So if you do have any requests, please feel free to leave them in the comments or let me know. And like I said, I will also be doing a listener stories and comments episode. I think that would be really fun to do. So if you do have anything you want me to share, please feel free to leave it in the comments section, and they'll be featured in a future episode. Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, and remember, some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Thank you so much for tuning into Midnight Brew and Mysteries, and take care, guys.